Good evening, Internet. I was thinking we could discuss Rick and Morty, a very popular show right now that's in the midst of its third season. Its ratings are great, some of the best episodes are happening right now, and yet I've seen a lot of malcontent directed towards the show. In particular, I'm seeing a lot of hate coming from 4chan and Tumblr. While there's a lot of love for Rick and Morty, a ton of love even, I'm seeing this lashback happening. And some people might cite this as just like, oh, something's becoming popular, you have these hipsters rising out of the woodworks to slam it. But the hate isn't directed towards the show, it's directed towards the fandom of Rick and Morty. And you can just chalk this up to more hipster behavior, judging people by their tastes and not their personalities. And yet, whenever you go on the internet to discuss any kind of media, you are going to be exposed to fans of that media, the fandom, the community surrounding that media. And when you're continually exposed to this fandom, you often start to notice certain reoccurring personality traits. And you start to find things that you may not like about that fandom. And I see, as Rick and Morty becomes more and more popular, for a lot of people, it's becoming harder and harder to avoid this fandom. Even if you don't enjoy the show, you're often meeting people and seeing people discuss the ideas present in it, and you probably will get exposed to these personality traits whether you like it or not. So you would hope there are a lot of positive traits associated with the Rick and Morty fanbase, right? So let's look at the protagonist of the show, which Rick and Morty spends a majority of the runtime, I'd say, celebrating. Rick Sanchez is a man of science who spends most of his time proving people wrong, kind of being an asshole, and lamenting about how hard it is to be smart in a world full of dumb people. Now, Internet. Are you familiar with the general stereotype for the Redditor? It's pretty much exactly this. And I think that's the reason why I'm seeing so much hate on Tumblr and 4chan, and not quite as much on the website Reddit. So there's a lot of already pre-existing hatred, or some people are feeling that Rick and Morty is exacerbating this type of person that was already flocking to Reddit. Now, Rick and Morty seems to be another kind of campfire for these types of people who pride themselves on being contrarian and proving people wrong, and priding themselves in their pseudo-intellectualism. And the internet is kind of sick of it. I've seen a lot of different communities who are already getting very tired of Rick and Morty fans. Even people who are fans of Rick and Morty are becoming embarrassed to be Rick and Morty fans. And you may not agree with that. You may not see any problem with a fandom becoming a bunch of douchebags in a way. So why should you care? I think you should, personally. And the reason is that the louder and the more obnoxious a fan base becomes, the harder it is not to be exposed to it. And when you're getting more and more exposure to this community surrounding this piece of media, the harder it becomes to disassociate the two. A Rick and Morty episode is only 30 minutes, and if you spend even half that time talking online about it, you're going to get exposed to a lot of these types of people. And the louder the Rick and Morty community gets, the more it's going to start to drown out the show itself. And eventually, the two voices are going to start sounding a lot like one. Well, something to sleep on. Have a good evening, Internet.